Welcome back to Hot Roster Today, yesterday, with Gary and Thorne and Cam Stewart. We are now breaking down the star quarterback card, which is available to you at HotRoster.com this weekend. We actually broke it down on last week's show with Corey Parson. So we got some of these right. We got some wrong. There's some close matchups, Cam. And I think actually one of the most interesting ones was Jameis Winston versus Tyrod Taylor. I was thinking about this one yesterday as I was watching these games. And, you know, Jameis had a fantastic game against the 49ers after a rough start. They got down early in that game.
So did Mike Evans.
And Mike Evans, was great in that contest as well. But Tyrod Taylor pulls through as he's done the entirety of this season based upon his legs. He gets those 35 yards and a touchdown on the ground. The two-point conversion to Reggie Bush also helped in that contest. So Winston, with his 270 yards and 3 touchdowns, does not beat Tyrod Taylor, who is a half-point underdog.
And I think we really liked Winston in the matchup.
Yeah.
We're going, great situation.
Just a great matchup.
Niners, but hey, Tyrod Taylor continues to be that guy. He's doing it all. And you know what, Gary? The thing I like about Tyrod Taylor is, too, when he's running, he's so fluid. But when he throws the long ball, if you give him time, it's on the money.
It's great.
It's fantastic.
He's a guy who doesn't get a ton of dropbacks because, I mean, it was an interesting situation against the Dolphins because, one, they were down late in that game. They had to pass. With McCoy being hurt as well, they weren't as reliant on the run as they had been the entirety of the season. Like, the Bills are a team that are going to be in the top 5 in run ratio this season. That's just how they're going to run their offense. But with no Robert Woods in that game and no LaShawn McCoy moving forward, we've reached a point where, like, you know, Tyrod, we trust him. And he's right now, he's fourth in fantasy points per drop back. He's got 270 yards rushing, which leads all quarterbacks. So there's a base and there's a floor there with those legs. Is that enough for you to trust him again going forward against New England if Robert Woods doesn't play, if LaShawn McCoy doesn't play?
Against New England, it's kind of tough. But I'll tell you the one thing, too, and Tyrod Taylor, Goodwin, we knew him in Texas. He's that guy. He's that guy with a couple of catches, maybe 90 yards, because he will break one for a huge touchdown, and that's exactly what happened. The guy's a burner. And
almost had a scary injury in that game, too. So it's good that he's okay. Will likely play in
Do you start Tyrod against New England? I don't know, man.
I think there's better matchups. And it's like we always talk about, Cam. When you get past that elite group of 6 or 7, there's probably a guy with a better matchup who I like to round out the top 12 than Tyrod. But again, that elevated floor with those running yards is not something you can ignore on a week-to-week basis. Blake Bortles versus Andy Dalton.
Well, we got this one right.
This one seemed pretty easy on paper, and it came through. I
don't even know what to tell you. I'm so done with Blake Bortles, not even from, like, sometimes not even a fantasy perspective, but a reality perspective. This Jacksonville Jaguar team is taking steps back.
Yeah.
They look like absolutely. Did you see the penalties in the game? There was guys flipping out. They just looked like a high school team, like, going nuts, Gary. And it's going from bad to worse. His accuracy is awful. He has no relationship with Allen Robinson anymore. It seems like him and Marquise Lee, all garbage time points, too. The guy sucks. He's having 9 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. I've never seen a quarterback. He is regressing.
Yeah.
In a big way.
And it's bad. I mean, Dalton had the great matchup against Cleveland, throws for 382 touchdowns.
Dalton's been great the last 3 weeks.
He has been really good. It was just the touchdowns weren't there, and they finally came through for the Browns. 2 interceptions for Bortles, as you mentioned. Did have 33 yards on the ground, which is something that he's want to do. He is a guy who can get some sneaky rushing yards for you, but I'm with you. Like, right now, it's not just even the way he's played, but he projected this forward his next couple weeks at Tennessee, at Kansas City. Like, he's already bad on the road in general. Like, those are 2 very good defenses he's got to play. Then he gets Houston, maybe week 11 against Detroit, but even that's a road game. I don't know if I trust Blake Bortles on the road at this point. And then the playoffs, his fantasy playoffs are Minnesota, no thank you, Houston, and Tennessee. Those are terrible matchups.
When you're talking like that, he's almost droppable at this point.
I think he is droppable at this point. It's as we talked about with Tyrod.
It's insane.
You can find a better guy on a week-to-week basis than Blake Bortles at this point. So I think cut ties with him. Hopefully he didn't draft him too high. Hopefully he didn't get caught up in the movement that was Blake Bortles heading into this season. But I would agree with you, Cam. I think he's droppable at this point. Matt Stafford versus Derek Carr. This was a really interesting one because
Matt Stafford, the old cardiac kid. What's with Matt Stafford in the fourth quarter? These Lions, they like to
just loves pulling through. I mean, it seemed like they were going to lose that game, but that last second drive by Stafford, he finishes with 266 yards and a touchdown, also 32 yards rushing, which is sort of rare for Matt Stafford.
Weird.
Derek Carr, 200 yards through the air and a touchdown. Now, Carr has now put together 2 consecutive poor weeks from a fantasy perspective, but that game to me, Cam, against Jacksonville, seemed like just one of those spots where that could have been Derek Carr, 200 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
It just, they happened to
They were
run them
running
in.
the ball.
You know, like, it was a good game. Oakland moved the ball. They had 350 yards of total offense.
And the other game was against Kansas City, where Kansas City has played great.
He's never been good against Kansas City as well. So Carr right now, top 10 in the league in attempts, in passing yards, and passing touchdowns. I think he's fine. Carr's fine at this point. Again, it's somewhat matchup dependent for me as to whether or not I'm locking him in every week. Like, I don't think he's one of those 6-7 guys who's like a must-start elite Drew Brees type, but Yeah, I think this was just one of those games. It didn't play out like he got the red zone look, so I wouldn't freak out
Well, he's
too
at
much.
Tampa Bay. I could tell you one thing.
That's a good one.
It's time to put the car in motion.
Yeah.
I'll be starting him that week.
Back in on Derek Carr that week as well. Okay, Phillip Rivers against Kirk Cousins. This one was a high-scoring matchup, Cam. Cousins actually wins it in the end. The Tyrod Taylor way, gets in the end zone with his legs, which is something that Cousins also kind of in a sneaky way has been known for. And they've been bad in the red zone. And it seems like one of his best options at this point, especially without Jordan Reed.
Yep.
He's just like, hey, maybe
Yeah,
I'll
I'll
take this
do
in
it
myself. Like, I mean, at this point, but 301 yards and a passing touchdown for
And
him
as
as
for
well.
Phillip Rivers, you want to talk about guys when you're breaking it down. Like, this is like a prize heavyweight fight. Like, we have to go to the scorecard because it's almost a tie.
It was almost a tie. 371 yards passing, a touchdown. The interception played big for Phillip Rivers, actually. And really the only reason he doesn't win this matchup is Melvin Gordon, who cannot run the ball more than 2 yards anywhere inside the 20s. But if you get inside the 5-yard line, Melvin Gordon's getting that puppy in the end zone. And we talk about just projecting forward, and if you're worried about Rivers in the sense that, like, okay, maybe he's not going to get these touchdowns.
Don't worry about Rivers.
Don't worry about him at all. Right now, San Diego lives inside the red zone, which is important for every one of their skill players.
I'm concerned about Henry because they're starting to go back to Gates. That's the problem, Marion.
I think it's still going to be a thing where Gates gets looks in the red zone. I think Henry's still going to own the field in the middle of the field. But it's tough to own him if he's not going to get the touchdown looks. But I will say, the thing with Rivers, and I just talked about this with Bortles, it's the exact opposite with Phil. His playoff matchups, well, even his, like, if you need to win in the final week of the season to get into the playoffs, Tampa Bay, Carolina, Oakland, Cleveland.
Those are 4 favorable matchups.
You want to own Phillip Rivers if you want to win your fantasy league this season. So Cousins wins that matchup, but Rivers does very well. Then Breeze against Marcus Mariota. We talked about this one in a really weird way. It was like it was begging you to take Mariota. He was getting points, a half point against Breeze. Breeze was on the road.
And Breeze is doing it on the road now.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't
matter
matter.
at
Breeze
all.
is one of these guys. Now you take him every week. It doesn't matter if it's a Superdome or the road. Gary, and his numbers are through the roof.
They're fantastic.
And you have to. And Mariota, we liked him because he had 120 rushing yards plus the rushing touchdown. So
Didn't have the rushing yards this week.
And we get him as a dog, but they kind of tricked us. Breeze was the play.
And Mariota didn't have a bad game, 232 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he needs the rushing yards, as you were talking about. It wasn't through for him in this week. Breeze, 367 and 3 touchdowns. I will say, by DVOA entering that week, and it's only going to get better at this point, they were already the 7th best offense. And we talk about every year, oh, they're so good at home and they're so bad on the road.
Nah.
They have this great stat on DVOA about variance, about which team shows up each week. Their offense is the second most consistent offense on a week-to-week basis, which kind of dispels this whole road-home thing.
So that's the old Saints. These are the new Saints.
So I think, like you said, you roll him out regardless of where he is. So that was last week, Cam. Let's move to the future now. We're not going to talk about football yet. It's only Monday. I know we can talk about football any day, but still, just Monday. So we're going to talk some hockey. We got 2 games.
Yep.
Light card.
Good matchups, though.
Some interesting matchups on the Power Play card that is available to you on HotRoster.com. So Cam and I will break that down when we come back after the break.